Hello, Bob here. Welcome to the 5 best exercises for seniors to strengthen your core. What is the core, you ask? Your lumbar spine or your low back is your core, and all the muscles that work collaboratively to keep that part of your body stable make up the core, such as your transverse abdominis in the front, your multifidus muscles in the back, your quadratus lumborum muscles in the sides, your diaphragm at the top, and your pelvic floor muscles at the bottom. If you keep these muscles strong, your balance will improve. It should reduce the possibility of low back pain. You might not get sciatica, which begins in your low back and travels down your legs, or piriformis syndrome, which is pain deep inside your hips, and you'll be able to move better and feel younger. I'm going to check my posture standing up and then seated. When I'm standing up, I want to make sure that my feet are shoulder width apart and my toes are pointing straight ahead. I'm soft in the knees, but my legs are straight. I can feel some tension in my legs. Okay, so I am working my hamstrings and my quads and pushing my knees back. I've got a pelvic tilt option here. I can either push my hips forward or I can push my hips back. I don't want to do either. I want to be right in the middle, in neutral. My shoulders are down, back a little bit, and relaxed, and my hands are at my sides. My head is in neutral, which means that my chin is sitting on a ledge, and it's being pushed into the back of my head a little bit to get the earlobes above the shoulders. And the last thing, someone is pulling the top of my head straight up, making me as tall as possible. When I'm in this position, my core muscles are stabilizing me. They're keeping me from moving deep inside my body. Of course, I do want to move, and I want to keep this form. That'll be surface muscles that will move me. But my core muscles are trying to keep my posture perfect at all times. Whether I'm bending over, lying down, twisting, they're working hard to maintain great posture. Now I'm going to check my posture seated. Again, my feet are pointing straight ahead. My legs are shoulder width apart. My knees are over top of my ankles. My hips are in neutral. My shoulders are down, back a little bit, and relaxed. I can put my hands anywhere I want. Chin is on the ledge. Chin is pushing back into my neck. And someone is pulling the top of my head straight up. The first core exercise is diaphragmatical or deep breathing. I call it diaphragmatical because it has to do with the diaphragm, which is a core muscle found right underneath the ribs. It's like a crescent. It's very thin and flat, and it sits right underneath the ribs. And the job of the diaphragm is to push all the organs in your belly down and out of the way so that the oxygen can fill up your lungs so that they might get bigger and bigger and bigger underneath your ribs. So if I take a deep breath in through my nose, my lungs get bigger, my ribs flex out, and my diaphragm slides down, flattens out, and pushes the organs down. When that happens, my belly starts to expand, because where are these organs going to go? Out. So if I'm taking that deep breath in, my belly gets bigger. And when I blow out through my mouth, the diaphragm comes from a flat muscle into a crescent muscle back up under the ribs, letting the organs come back into place. Complicated? Not really. Do you want to be able to breathe in lots of oxygen? Yes, because oxygen is food for all the muscles, including the diaphragm. And you need oxygen to be alive and to move about and have a great time on our planet. So here's how we're going to do it. You can do this sitting down as long as you're in your best posture, or standing up in your best posture. So the first thing I always do is check my posture, seated or standing. Then I'm going to take a deep breath in through my nose and watch what happens to my belly. And I might as well put my hands on my belly, and I'll feel my belly get bigger or smaller. Now, if my belly doesn't get too big, maybe I'm having difficulty breathing deeply because I don't practice that. I shallow breathe a lot, like most of us. So let's just see what happens to our belly when we breathe in. Yep, it got bigger. And blow out. Yep, it got smaller. Now here's the trick. I want to breathe in as long as I can to get as much oxygen into my body as possible. And then when I blow out, I want to blow out twice as long to get rid of all that carbon dioxide that I picked up in my lungs to eliminate it. Because carbon dioxide is the waste product from breathing. So I breathe in the good stuff, the oxygen, and then I blow out twice as long to get all the carbon dioxide I can out of my lungs. And then again, in, maybe 2-3 seconds. Out, maybe 4, 5, 6 seconds. So the blowing out, getting rid of the carbon dioxide or the waste, is the important part as far as I'm concerned. Okay, here I go. I'm going to try to blow out twice as long as I breathe in. And I kind of purse my lips to make it come out evenly, slowly, and then I'll be able to do it longer. Sometimes I put my tongue up behind my teeth to make room for the carbon dioxide to get out easier. Sometimes I forget to do that. One more time. Good work. Remember, it's the diaphragm that's the muscle that's doing the work. Pushing, relaxing, pushing the organs down, relaxing, very thin underneath the ribs, diaphragm. It's going to do it whether you like it or not. It's just that if you're a shallow breather, like most of us, the diaphragm doesn't move very much. You don't get the amount of oxygen that you really need to walk up a hill because you're practicing shallow breathing and your brain's thinking, that's enough, I don't need to work too hard. And then all kinds of things happen inside the muscles in your body because you're not breathing enough oxygen. Okay, now here's the deal. If I want to use my muscle number 2, pelvic floor muscles, and by the way, my pelvic floor here, well, if I took a little tiny hammock and I attached it to one hip and to the other hip, and I let it swing down between my legs there, the job of the hammock is to hold all these organs in place. There's nothing else holding them in place. They're all sitting with a few muscles and ligaments and tendons and fascia to keep them there, but really it's kind of like a free-for-all in there with those organs. You know, you got the old stomach and the pancreas and the gallbladder and the liver and you name it, they're all floating around in there. So that pelvic floor hammock between your hips down at the bottom here, that is holding all the muscles in place. And it's going up and down too. It has a lot to do with your bladder, which is down there too. You know, it fills up with urine and then you urinate. Well, that pelvic floor has a lot to do with that. And if you're not exercising the pelvic floor, you could run into all kinds of problems, digestive problems or urinary problems, peeing problems. You could. Even elimination problems too, because it has to do with your intestines that are down in there too. So that pelvic floor has muscles. We just call them pelvic floor muscles, but one very common, popular muscle that lives down there in the pelvic floor is called your Kegel, K-E-G-E-L, the Kegel muscles. And if you want to practice contracting and expanding those Kegel muscles, all you have to do is tighten your pelvic floor. And how do you do that? Well, if you're urinating and right in the middle of urinating or peeing, if you want to stop the urination, just squeeze whatever muscles you think you need to squeeze, and your pelvic floor will stop the urination. The Kegel muscles down there will stop the urination. And then sometimes if you're a male like me and you're peeing and you want to get rid of more urine, you kind of squeeze your Kegel muscles and then let go of them and it kind of shoots out the extra urine. Gross, right? Not really. It's all about the Kegel muscles and the other pelvic floor muscles that you want to work. So here's what we're going to do. By the way, when you squeeze them, I'm going to stand here and squeeze my Kegel muscles are being squeezed. Can you tell? No, there's no sign that you can tell. If I'm squeezing my bicep, it gets bigger. You can tell that I'm doing that. Okay, if I'm doing a squat and I'm squeezing my quads, they get bigger. But you can't tell just by looking at someone, even if they're seated, you can do this, that they're squeezing their Kegel muscles. But you, the person doing the squeezing, you can feel it. And it's not happening in your butt cheeks, in your glutes. No. You can squeeze those and get them really tight and let your Kegel muscles in your pelvic floor relax. Or you can squeeze the Kegel muscles and let your butt muscles, your glute muscles, relax. So don't try to think that when you squeeze your bum, you're squeezing your Kegels, because you're not. So I'm going to squeeze my Kegels. I can feel it. It's sort of like a pulling up feeling. And then I'm going to relax them. It's sort of like letting the hammock relax. Let's try squeezing them again. Good. My hammock is sort of pulling up, and then it's going to relax. So if that's true, why don't I coordinate the Kegel exercise with the diaphragmatical diaphragm exercise, the breathing in and the breathing out. So here I go. I'm going to breathe in through my nose, and when I do that, this gets bigger. And when this gets bigger, it pushes my Kegel, my pelvic floor down, because the organs are looking for space, right? Good. And then when I blow out, everything comes back up, including my pelvic floor muscles. They come up. So what I'm going to do is try to not only squeeze them when I blow out, but I'm going to pull my belly button in to pull my Kegel muscles up. So I take a breath in, Kegel relaxes, blow out, squeeze the belly button in and up, pulling my Kegels. I can feel it in my pelvic floor. Kegel down, Kegel up. So I do that contraction of my pelvic floor muscles when I blow out. Okay? Practice that one. And I'm working my transverse abdominis, which is a core muscle deep inside my body, close to my lumbar spine at the front. So I'm working the stability of the spine at the front. And I use a little pillow here because when I lie down, I want my head in neutral. So I don't want it hanging over the edge of the mat. That feels like neutral. So the first thing I do here is I straighten one leg, flex my foot, let the other leg be bent with the foot flat on the floor. So I'm going to work this side of my body and then I'm going to switch and work the other side. It's all about the transverse abdominis muscle, core muscle, in the front of my lumbar spine. Okay, my arms are at my sides, but I have this natural curve in my spine which I want to maintain. So if I put my knuckles underneath there, it'll not only tell me if I'm trying to flatten my back, which I don't want to do, but it'll keep my back from flattening. If you can't do this with your arms, you might want to put a towel under there. So one leg is straight, the other one is bent, the foot is flexed, and I'm going to tighten up my whole leg first by flexing my foot, which will tighten up the lower part below my knee. Then I'm going to push my knee with my brain into the floor, which will tighten up my quads and my hamstrings. Then I'm going to have to squeeze my glute muscles on this side of my bum. And then I'm going to use my Kegel muscles in my pelvic floor, and I'm going to pull my pelvis up toward my belly with my brain. A lot of things to do here with just lying on the floor here. And once I've got everything tight and pulled and squished and all the rest of it, I'm going to very, very, very carefully just lift my head and a little bit of my shoulders, looking straight up at the ceiling, not bending my head like this because I want my head in neutral. Remember, that chin is on that ledge if I'm in best posture. So I lift my head up just a little tiny bit and I breathe in through my nose. And don't forget, when I blow out, I really, really pull my belly button in and I pull my pelvic floor up. Rest, switch, tighten up everything on the left side, right up from the bottom of my foot, right up to my Kegel muscles in my pelvic floor. Tighten everything. And then I breathe in. And as I blow out, I lift my head and a little bit of my shoulders and I pull my belly button in. And blow out twice as long as I breathed in. Switch. And I try to do, for a beginner, maybe 3 on each side and work up to 10 on each side in maybe a couple of months. There's so much to think about here. Let's start with the one side of our back. We're going to use, say, the right hand, and we're going to put it on the wall or the window or the door, approximately hip height. Face the window, the door, and then take the opposite leg and raise it up. Let me move away a little bit, not too much. Raise it up, okay? You can point your toe or flex your foot, doesn't matter. Raise it up. And the leg that's supporting you, it can be bent a little bit at the knee. And then put your head down and just hold it right there. And then we'll do the other side. So the hands on the wall or the door or the window, approximately hip height. And then you're going to lean forward, raise the opposite leg, point the toe, flex the foot, doesn't matter. And down you go. So here I am in the table position down on my mat on the floor. Notice my hands are below my shoulders. Notice my hands are in front of my knees. I've got my spine in neutral here. I'm not one way or the other. I'm just in neutral, resting in this position. Okay, when I'm ready, I'm going to take one arm and put it straight out. That's not too hard, but it might be hard for some of you. Let me try the other side, see how that feels. That feels a little bit more stable. Let's try the opposite leg. Let's try one of the legs. I'll stick the leg straight out. Instead of lifting it up, I'll just put my toe down. Keep the leg straight. That doesn't feel so bad. Try the other side. That feels a little easier. So maybe I'll start on this side here. So with the leg straight out, and I'm balancing on my toe or the balls of my feet there, the opposite arm goes straight out. I try to keep my back flat, so I have to maybe lower my shoulder and push my hip up a little bit or something. If there's somebody in the house with you, you can say, do I look like I have a pretty flat back? Let's try the other side. So the arm goes up and straight out, reaching with my fingers there. The leg goes straight, balancing on my toe. There I go. That's the bird dog. If I want to try to incorporate my breath, breathing in through my nose and blowing out through my mouth, squeezing my pelvic floor, pulling my belly button in, any of that stuff. If you want to try that, fine. But I'd be happy if you just could do this and hold it for a number of seconds. Breathe normally or do deep breathing. It's up to you. And then when you're ready, do the other side. That would be a great start to the bird dog. The side plank is working your core muscles, quadratus, lumborum, which run down each side close to your spine, okay? And we're going to rest on our forearm. We're going to bend our legs and put them back so that when we look down the length of our body now, we've got our shoulders lined up with our hips lined up with our knees. And when we're ready, we're just going to lift our hips off the ground as high as we can get them. Now, if you need this extra hand to push up, that would be okay. Or you could try lifting it over your head or putting it on your hips. Doesn't matter. You just want to get the hips as high as you can and hold them there for a number of seconds. Now, that would be level 1. Level 2, if you think that's just way too easy, you could straighten your legs so they're stacked on top of each other. Just make sure that your shoulder, hips, knees are all lined up in a straight line, because sometimes people are like this and then they're doing the exercise wrong. So then you would pull your hips up. Now you're pushing down on the sides of your feet. This is a lot harder, okay? How long, if you doing it the first way, how long do you keep your hips up? As long as you want, but I would coordinate the breath, the breathing in through the nose, the blowing out through the mouth, and maybe squeezing my pelvic floor. I would try to incorporate all that stuff into it. So I lift up, breathe in and out, whatever number of times you want, and then put it down and then switch sides. Resting on the forearm, stacking your legs, bending your legs, pushing them behind you, checking your shoulder with your hip and your knees, and lifting your hips. How many would you do? Well, if you did 3 on each side, every time you practiced this exercise, that'd be great. So I'm trying to stretch my quadratus lumborum, which is a core muscle that's deep inside my body, close to my spine, on the sides of my body. And there's a lot of muscles in there, so it's very difficult to get at that muscle. But I'm going to do it standing up. So I'm going to just put my hip against the wall, the fridge, the wall. And I'm going to take the inside leg and cross it over. So I'm standing like this, with my hip against the wall, on a bit of an angle. Take this arm here, reach it up and away from the wall.
Right on this side. Let me try the doorway here. Right, put the inside leg around like this. Right.